The secret brain hack that makes you crave discipline. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to thrive in discomfort while others collapse under the slightest pressure? Why some people wake up at 4 a.m., attack the day with brutal focus, and seem to love the grind, while others can't get out of bed without hitting snooze 5 times? It's easy to chalk it up to genetics or upbringing or even luck, but what if the truth is deeper, more philosophical, more controllable? What if there was a secret brain hack, not a gimmick or a shortcut, but a principle so ancient and so profound that once you understand it, discipline stops being a chore and becomes a craving? That's what we're diving into today. This is not a motivational speech. This is a philosophical awakening, a shift in the way you think about discomfort, desire, and your own mind. Because once you see what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at discipline the same way again. Let's start with a paradox. Human beings are wired to avoid pain, but we're also wired to seek meaning. And here's where the contradiction begins. Because most meaningful things in life, growth, mastery, purpose, all require some form of pain. So the moment you chase meaning, you're also inviting suffering. That's not a bug in life's system, it's the entire design. But here's the catch. Your brain doesn't hate pain, it hates meaningless pain. That's why workouts feel good when they have a goal. That's why people endure heartbreak to keep love alive. That's why warriors, monks, and artists all embrace struggle, not because they love suffering, but because they've tied suffering to something transcendent. That's the hack. That's the secret. If you want to crave discipline, you have to attach it to something bigger than yourself.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Now, this isn't just neuroscience, it's philosophy. Think of Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." That's not just poetic, it's neurological. When you assign deep purpose to your pain, your brain literally rewires its relationship to effort. Pain becomes sacred. Struggle becomes sacred. You start to crave the hard things not because they're hard, but because they're a doorway, a portal, a sacred rite of passage toward the version of you that exists on the other side. But most people never get there because they never ask the question, why am I doing this? And that's the first step of the hack. Tie your discipline to identity, not outcome. If you go to the gym to look better, you'll quit when results are slow. But if you go to the gym because you are a disciplined person, then every set, every rep, every ounce of sweat proves who you are. And that's addictive. Because the deepest craving we all have is not for pleasure, it's for coherence. To feel like our actions match our essence. So when you say, "I'm the kind of person who does hard things," and then you actually do hard things, your brain releases dopamine not because of the reward, but because of the alignment. You're no longer betraying yourself. You're living in integrity. And that is a high that no drug can match. But here's where it gets even wilder. Once your brain associates effort with identity, it starts to seek out challenge. It starts to anticipate the feeling of becoming that comes with every disciplined action. You begin to crave discomfort not because you're a masochist, but because you're addicted to growth. And growth is impossible without friction. This is why monks sit in silence for days. Why athletes train until they vomit. Why entrepreneurs risk everything for a vision. They've linked pain to becoming, to transcendence, to truth. And that's when discipline stops being willpower and starts being worship. But we have to be honest. This transformation doesn't happen by accident. It requires a very specific reprogramming of your mind. And that starts with one brutal question: do I want to continue betraying who I know I could be? Because that's what undisciplined living really is. It's not laziness. It's not weakness. It's self-betrayal. Every time you skip the hard thing you promised yourself you'd do, you whisper to your soul, "You don't matter." And over time, that whisper becomes a scream. You feel it as anxiety, as depression, as disconnection. But it's not a mental illness, it's a moral fracture. Your actions and your essence are out of sync. So how do we heal that fracture? We start small, with one act of discipline done not for results but for identity. One cold shower, one early wake up, one workout, one focused hour of writing, reading, fasting, praying, meditating, whatever it is that pushes you beyond your comfort zone and into the arena of your own potential. And when you do that thing, don't say "I did it." Say, "This is who I am." Speak it out loud. Carve it into your nervous system, because your brain is listening. And over time, it will believe you. But here's the deep philosophical twist. Becoming disciplined is not about becoming more. It's about becoming less. Less distracted, less reactive, less enslaved by impulse. You're not building a new self, you're returning to the self you were before the world seduced you with comfort. And that self is powerful, focused, dangerous. That self wakes up and hungers for the battle, not because it wants to suffer, but because it knows deep down that the only way to remember who you are is to do things that force you to remember. So I'll leave you with this. What if the real reason you're undisciplined has nothing to do with laziness and everything to do with a forgotten identity? What if the real you is already disciplined, already focused, already unstoppable, but buried under years of comfort, distraction, and lies? And what if the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is the decision to suffer on purpose? The pleasure of pain, why the brain rewards suffering when it's done the right way. Let's flip everything you've ever been taught about pain on its head. We've been told that pain is the enemy, that discomfort is something to be avoided, numbed, or escaped. But what if pain was never the problem? What if pain, when understood correctly, is a signal not of danger but of alignment? What if pain in the right context is the exact stimulus your brain needs to unlock its highest potential? The truth is, your brain doesn't hate pain. It hates pointless pain. But pain with purpose, pain with direction, pain with meaning, that kind of pain becomes pleasure. And that's not just a metaphor. That's neuroscience, that's biology, that's ancient philosophy, and modern performance psychology, all converging on the same undeniable truth. When you suffer on purpose, your brain begins to reward you for it. This is why cold plunges, fasting, brutal workouts, long hours of focused study, and even spiritual silence can feel euphoric. In each of these, you're doing something very specific. You're choosing your suffering. And choice is the lever that transforms pain into power. When your brain registers that you are voluntarily undergoing hardship, it doesn't interpret that as a threat. It interprets it as growth. And it responds accordingly by releasing endorphins, dopamine, norepinephrine, and even serotonin. These aren't just stress chemicals. These are the pleasure chemicals. The ancient systems of your brain are literally designed to flood you with a sense of reward when you push through pain, as long as you chose it. Now think about that for a second. The very thing we're wired to avoid pain can become the thing we crave if we change the frame. That's the secret. That's the hack. You don't need more motivation. You need to redefine pain. You need to stop labeling it as bad and start labeling it as the gateway to everything you want. Because behind every goal, every dream, every vision of your future self, there is a wall of pain. And most people hit that wall and turn back. But the ones who understand this principle, they run into it, they welcome it, and eventually they start to enjoy it. But let's go deeper. Why does your brain do this? Why does your brain do this? Why does it reward voluntary suffering? Because evolution favors those who adapt. And the fastest way to adapt is through struggle. Your brain loves adaptation. It's built for it. But adaptation doesn't happen in comfort. It happens at the edge of your ability, in the reps that burn, in the hours that exhaust, in the silence that confronts. When you choose to push your limits, your nervous system wakes up, your neuroplasticity increases, your memory sharpens, your resilience hardens. You literally become a new creature, and your brain wants that. So it rewards you with the very thing most people think can only come from rest: pleasure. This is why monks radiate peace after days of fasting, why elite athletes smile through agony, why creators lose themselves in hours of work that would bore or break someone else. It's not because they're better. It's because they've trained their brain to associate pain with progress. And progress, to the human spirit, is intoxicating, because deep down, we are not creatures of comfort. We are creatures of becoming, and pain is the forge. But here's the philosophical shift. Not all pain is virtuous. Pain without purpose is just trauma. Pain without awareness is just damage. The pain that transforms is the pain you choose, with intention for a reason that transcends the moment. That's why you must make your pain sacred. Tie it to something bigger. Don't just run 5 miles, run because you're proving that your mind is stronger than your excuses. Don't just study for 10 hours, study because your future self is watching. Don't just fast because you want to master your desires, not be enslaved by them. And here's the twist that most never realize. The more you reframe pain as pleasure, the less pain it feels like. The moment you say, "This hurts, but I chose it," the suffering transforms. You're no longer a victim. You're the engineer of your discomfort. You're the one creating the pressure that forges the diamond. That shift from resistance to embrace is everything. Because once you stop running from pain and start running into it, you become free. Free from fear. Free from doubt. Free from the endless addiction to comfort that keeps most people trapped in small lives. So I'll leave you with this. What if every time you felt discomfort, it was actually your soul whispering, "You're getting closer"? What if pain wasn't the sign to stop but the signal to keep going? What would you be capable of if you could train your brain to crave the very things that once made you quit? That's not a fantasy. That's not hype. That's the secret brain hack. And once you master it, discipline becomes delicious. The discipline loop, how one act of willpower rewires your entire identity. There is a hidden loop running in the background of your life, quietly shaping everything you believe about yourself. Every choice you make feeds it. Every action you take reinforces it. This is the discipline loop, and once you understand how it works, you can use it to transform your identity from the inside out. Most people think identity is a fixed thing, like a personality trait or a zodiac sign. But that's a lie. Identity is plastic. It's programmable. And the most powerful programming language for identity is action. Not belief, not intention, not even knowledge. Action. And specifically actions that require willpower. Actions that cost energy. Actions that hurt. These are the actions that send a message deep into your subconscious that says, "This is who I am now." And your brain, always seeking internal consistency, will begin to adjust everything else to match that signal. Let's break it down. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you install a new line of code into your identity. You're not just going for a run, you're becoming a runner. You're not just waking up early, you're becoming someone who wakes up early. You're not just following through, you're becoming a person who follows through. And here's the magic. The next time you face a similar challenge, your brain remembers that identity. It recalls the version of you that made the hard choice last time, and it makes it easier to make that choice again. This is the loop. Action creates identity. Identity makes action easier. And that feedback loop, once it gains momentum, can make you unstoppable. But there's a dark side to this too. The discipline loop works in reverse. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, you reinforce the opposite identity. You're not just skipping the gym, you're becoming someone who skips. You're not just procrastinating, you're becoming a procrastinator. And the more you act against your own potential, the more your brain adapts to that pattern. It begins to expect collapse. It begins to predict failure. It starts to believe that discipline isn't for you. And once your identity is infected, your actions follow. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why breaking out of this cycle, once you're in, it can feel impossible. But it's not impossible. It's just unfamiliar. And unfamiliarity is not the same as impossibility. So how do you break the negative loop and enter the positive one? The answer is simple but not easy. You do one small hard thing and you mean it. You don't just do it halfway. You don't do it and say, well, that was just once. No. You do it and you attach identity to it. You say, this is who I am now. And then you repeat it tomorrow. And then the next day. And slowly, the loop begins to shift. Your brain starts catching up. Your self-talk begins to change. You go from I'm trying to be disciplined to I am disciplined. That's not a linguistic trick. That's a neurological transformation. And here's the profound philosophical truth behind it all. You're not just building habits, you're building yourself. And every act of discipline is an act of creation. You are not a fixed character in your story. You are the author. The plot changes when you change. But most people wait. They wait for motivation. They wait for the right mood. They wait to feel different before they do something different. But the discipline loop doesn't work that way. It's action first, identity second, emotion third. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll never start. But if you act first, your feelings will eventually catch up. This is why the first few acts of willpower are the hardest. They feel fake. They feel forced. But that's because you're fighting your old identity. You're going against the grain of your past choices. That discomfort, that's not weakness. That's the signal of transformation. That's the moment the old self is dying and the new self is being born. And if you can push through that resistance even once you've cracked the loop, and once the loop starts spinning in the right direction, it builds momentum. Eventually, it becomes harder not to be disciplined. You start craving the things that used to scare you. You start feeling off when you skip the hard thing. That's when you know the loop has fully rewired your identity. So here's the challenge. What is one small, hard thing you can do today that aligns with the version of you that you want to become? Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the stars to align. Just do it. And when it's done, claim it. Own it. Say it out loud. This is who I am now. Because that one sentence repeated with conviction can override years of self-doubt. That one action can begin the loop. And that loop can change your entire life. The end of excuses. Why discipline is the great equalizer of human potential. We live in a world obsessed with talent. From the moment we're children, we're told that some people are just naturally gifted, born with the intelligence, the body, the charisma, the it factor. We admire those who seem to have an edge, and we quietly assume that if we don't, we're already behind. But if there is one idea that has shattered more dreams than failure ever could, it's the belief that some people are just built different. That discipline is something you either have or you don't. That greatness is reserved for the chosen few. But I'm here to tell you, that's a lie. And worse, It's a convenient one, because believing that lie gives you an excuse. It gives you a way out. It gives you permission to stay small. But the truth is far more empowering and far more terrifying. Discipline is the great equalizer. In the long run, it beats talent. It beats luck. It beats privilege. Discipline is the one variable you can control, and once you master it, nothing can stop you. We don't all start at the same point. That's true. Some people are born into wealth, some into trauma. Some have supportive families, others have to raise themselves. Life isn't fair, but here's where it is fair. Discipline doesn't care where you started. It only cares what you do next. And in that way, it levels the playing field. Because no matter how far behind you feel, no matter how broken your past, no matter how many times you failed, you can choose discipline today, right now, in this moment. And that choice will begin to bend the trajectory of your life. Not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. Every excuse dies in the presence of discipline. When you wake up early even though you don't feel like it, you silence the voice that says, "I'm not a morning person." When you study while others scroll, you destroy the belief that I'm not smart enough. When you train your body while others make excuses, you bury the lie that I'm not athletic. Discipline is not just a tool, it's a weapon. It cuts through every limitation you've ever believed about yourself. It doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if you're scared. It only demands one thing: show up anyway. But here's the real reason discipline is so powerful: it changes how you see yourself. And once your self-image changes, your decisions follow. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop tolerating mediocrity. Not because you're trying to be better than others, but because you finally realize that you were never meant to live beneath your potential. And when that realization hits you, not just intellectually, but viscerally, you can't go back. You can't unsee it. You can't tolerate wasting another day in the prison of excuses. Excuses are seductive because they feel like truth. But they're not. They're stories. Stories we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of growth. I don't have time. I'm not wired that way. I'll start when I'm ready. None of those are facts. They're decisions. And every time you repeat them, you reinforce the identity of someone who doesn't change. But when you reject them, when you say, "Maybe I'm not ready, but I'm doing it anyway," you reclaim control. You take your power back from the narratives that have held you hostage for years. So ask yourself one final brutal question. Who would you be if you stopped making excuses for 30 days? Not forever, just 30 days. What could your body look like? What could your mind feel like? What could your life become if you replaced every excuse with one act of discipline? You don't need a new plan. You don't need a new book. You don't need a new app. You need a new standard, a new expectation for yourself. One rooted in the truth that greatness isn't given, it's earned. And it's earned one decision at a time. Discipline is not about punishment. It's about freedom. The freedom to live without regret. The freedom to face yourself in the mirror and feel proud. The freedom to know that no matter what life throws at you, you will not fold. You will not hide. You will not run. You will rise. Because you are disciplined. And now, your excuses are out of time.